Coming up, Texas lawmakers pass a sweeping voting restriction bill. What's next in the process?
Plus, Texas now has one of the strictest abortion bans in the country. What's included in the bill?
And Chief Deputy John Pollock back on the job. How he's doing just 2 weeks after being shot in the face. It's Wednesday, September 1st. Good Morning Texas starts now. Lawmakers are giving the green light to the voting restrictions bill. That measure now heads to the governor's desk, who says that he will sign it. Good morning and thanks for joining us. I'm Joey Horta.
And I'm Paige Ellenberger. Other states, including Florida and Georgia, have passed similar bills, all based on former President Donald Trump's claims that the 2020 election was fraudulent. But there was no evidence of widespread voter fraud in Texas or anywhere else. Democrats say the bill is meant to benefit Republicans because the restrictions largely impact people who tend to vote for Democrats. Now that includes black voters and other communities of color. The changes that come with the bill include a ban on drive-through and 24-hour voting, new regulations for early voting hours, new ID requirements to vote by mail, a ban on distributing mail-in ballot applications, and creating new roles for voter assistants. Also happening this morning, Texas now has one of the strictest abortion laws, or bans rather, in the country. The controversial law took effect today after the U.S. Supreme Court declined to block it. The law bans abortions as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy, regardless if a person is a victim of rape or incest. Now, according to Planned Parenthood, 85% of abortions in the state of Texas happen after the 8-week mark. They argue that the time frame of 6 to 8 weeks is usually too early for a woman to even know that she's pregnant.
We're talking tens of thousands of Texans will be forced to leave the state to access a safe medical procedure.
The bill also allows residents to sue abortion providers who they believe have broken the law. Some other bills going into effect today include the state's 2022-2023 budget, reducing barriers for SNAP benefits, state employee retirement accounts, an active shooter alert system, and the banning of unnecessary police chokeholds.
The Senate's massive $12 trillion infrastructure bill is a bipartisan breakthrough after months of negotiations. For one Montgomery County community, it might mean the answer to their prayers after decades of pleading for utilities most of us take for granted. 25 in-depth reporter Nick Bradshaw finds a Texas community left behind.
In Montgomery County, tucked behind Shenandoah, is a spot most might know very little about. You're talking about people buried from the days of slavery, right?
Yes. Yes, they've been buried here from the days of slavery.
You see, according to historians, Montgomery County was one of the largest slaveholding counties in the state of Texas.
Yeah, some people said they even live right across the freeway, say they didn't even know this area was over here, so they just couldn't believe. That side of the freeway, all this, and then this side of the freeway, it's just like you're going to another world.
And James Levinston, now in his 70s, has been devoted to keep Tamina on the map. Not only a resident, but president of the water board.
Man, our officials don't seem like they want to help us. The county and nobody don't seem like they want to give us any help.
Tamina, it's uncorporated and traced back to 1871. And that's when freed slaves helped build the Houston and Great Northern Railroad. But this is Tamina today.
We need drains. This place is flooding every time it rains. It gets a little ridiculous.
We can't even get sewage. So how can we have a future unless we get somebody to step in and really help us get just the necessities?
Most use septic tanks, while some can only afford 55-gallon drums for waste. But according to community members, the county is making that even harder. In 1989, efforts started to help the historical community. In 1999, county commissioners hired a Houston engineering firm to explore ways to bring sewer service to Tamina. In 2001, Oak Ridge North presented a detailed plan for providing water and sewer services. But in 2004, it all fell through.
It don't leave too much room for hope other than God have to intervene.
It's eyes on the future, with hopes the path is smoother.
That's the situation we in down here.
In Montgomery County, Nick Bradshaw, 25 News.
Now to a remarkable story in Burleson County. Chief Deputy John Pollock is back on the job 2 weeks after being shot in the face. KRHD reporter Hannah King catches up with him.
2 weeks after being shot in the line of duty.
You know, it feels great to be back here. Walking in the door.
Burleson County Chief Deputy John Pollock is back at work.
Just thankful to be alive and thankful to be back at work working with all my coworkers.
He's not 100% yet, but every day he's inching closer.
It's going to be a slow process, but every day I feel stronger.
Pollock was shot in the face August 17th while serving a warrant at a home near Snook.
The bullet shattered my mandible in half, so everything's having to kind of grow back together.
His mouth will be wired shut for another 4 to 5 weeks.
When Chief Pollock called me and told me he'd been shot, I never believed that, in this short period of time that he would be standing in front of you doing an interview this quick.
Sheriff Gene Hermes knows the outcome could have been much worse.
Majority of the time, it does. We're so thankful that this has gone the way it has.
Pollock credits much of his recovery to the outpouring of support from the community.
That's half of my healing right there. It's a huge part of it. And so to be standing here, obviously, I'm very happy to be here. I think my healing is going as well as can be expected.
Pollock being back in the building also means so much to his coworkers.
It's not just the work part of it. I'm glad to see him back at work and glad for him because he's not a quitter. He doesn't like to sit around, so he wanted to come to work.
If this is all I have to deal with, then, I can deal with this.
In Burleson County,
He's a trooper, I tell you.
Hannah King, 25 News.
Taking a look now at the timeline of events. On August 17th, Pollock was shot in the face while attempting to serve a warrant to a man connected to a robbery at a Dollar General. The next day, he underwent surgery for his injuries, which was successful. Just 2 days after surgery, Pollock was released from the hospital. And then the Burleson County Sheriff's Office identifying one of the other 2 men connected to that robbery. And 4 are involved in it altogether. James Smith is accused of shooting Pollock and a DPS trooper. Smith was killed in the standoff that night. Police are now looking for 18-year-old Joshua Hedge and a 15-year-old. If you know anything about those 2 men, they're still on the run this morning. You can call the Burleson County Sheriff's Office. Many Texas veterans are facing a hard time due to the pandemic. The VA says veterans are twice as likely to die by suicide than civilians. But this morning, KRHD News reporter Rachel Lesbiot talks to a nonprofit looking to save lives by giving service members something to smile about.
As a military spouse who also grew up in a military family, Grace Belisario knows firsthand how beneficial a program like Armed Services Arts Partnership, or ASAP, can be.
I happen to be one of those people that went into a class like this where I didn't have any background, and I found that this was a really great outlet for me to kind of get rid of my serious side and really dive into something fun.
ASAP uses the arts to help members of the military community cope with trauma. And programs like this potentially save lives, as 511 Texas vets died by suicide in 2018 alone, according to the VA. Executive Director Brian Jenkins says the partnership heals through laughter.
The laughter and the humor that we're cultivating in our class environments are what's resulting in veterans experiencing improved resilience, sense of purpose, self-esteem, confidence, and overall sense of belonging, improving their well-being.
ASAP offers a 6-week class where people can use activities like comedy and improv to let loose.
What we try to cultivate at ASAP is an environment where people can fully be themselves,
while also helping participants work through their trauma in a safe place.
We give feedback in a way that's honoring and restorative.
Classes are kept in a small, intimate setting with 2 instructors and no more than 12 people to a class.
What that creates is an environment where you know that you're going to be supported by the people around you.
Due to the pandemic, all classes in the Lone Star State are being held virtually. In Brazos County, Rachel Lesbiot, KRHD News.
All right, folks, we're kicking off a new month this morning. That much closer to the start of fall, Josh.
Yeah, but it's not going to feel like fall at all. Even though September 1st marks the meteorological start of fall, that means our temperatures will start to fall as we go through the month. The actual fall equinox does not happen until later in the month, and today's just not going to feel like fall at all. In fact, you see these pink areas on the map. That is a heat advisory that is in effect. It does include our far northern counties, including Milam, Robertson, Leon County, Bryan College Station, not officially under it, But all the Brazos Valley needs to be taking their heat precautions today because we are going to see another one of those days where those heat indices really climb up. But that heat advisory officially in effect today for our northern counties. We already have temperatures that are near 80 degrees. In fact, already 80 degrees in Cameron, 79 in Bryan and in College Station, 80 degrees in Somerville, and 78 in Beedice. Feels like the mid-80s outside currently. And as we go through the day, we will still have the chance for a spot shower or thunderstorm, but most miss out. We'll call it a 20 to 30% chance, and maybe even less than that as we go through the day. Regardless, it's going to be humid, so that heat that you see is going to really start to feel a lot hotter as we see temperatures that will feel like they're at or above 100 degrees from about lunchtime on. Notice we keep the small rain chances today, but watch what happens for the weekend. Drier air works in, high pressure builds. That's going to keep showers and thunderstorms away from us. We were watching very closely for signals of a front for the middle of next week. Models have backed off with that for a little bit, but it still could come back. It's still a ways out. Regardless, for now, we stay on the heat side of things. 98 Bryan College Station normally should be at 95 this time of year, and then tonight dipping down into the mid-70s. 10-day forecast will show you it'll be even hotter than that. 97 today, 95 tomorrow, 97 Friday. We get to 98 Sunday, and then we try to back off temperatures a little bit later on next week. Just not a great cool down, though. Mid-90s coming back in with about a 20% chance of rain.
New Orleans, dark, and this is why. A transmission tower toppled by the 5th strongest storm in recorded American history. It'll be days, if not weeks, for any progress to be made here. Between this city and neighboring Mississippi, more than 1 million customers without power, and there's no word on when it could be restored. No air conditioning, no refrigeration in the sweltering summer heat.
Seems like there's hundreds, possibly more people, trapped in their houses. So it's going to be a pretty bad scene with a lot of work to do.
Thousands of National Guard members activated to help with the recovery efforts. Louisiana's governor says the death toll expected to rise considerably.
I can tell you for several days, we're going to be engaged in search and rescue, both the primary search, the secondary searches, and so forth. And we're going to be in this for the long haul. But the people of Louisiana are good and resilient people. And I can tell you, we're going to get through this.
The storm made landfall just before noon Sunday, the eye hitting Port Fourchon, Louisiana. Nearby roofs blown off from hospitals and businesses. Flooding, still a lingering concern for Jefferson Parish. Crews frantically trying to find anyone still stranded.
Our Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office, with our Louisiana National Guard, our fire services are out doing search and rescue.
Up next this morning, school is back in session. What Texas A&M University is doing to prevent a COVID spike from happening. You're watching Good Morning Texas. Texas A&M is back in session. New COVID protocols are in place now. The university not requiring students, faculty, or staff to get vaccinated, but they're strongly encouraging it. The university now has mandatory COVID-19 testing now until September 10th. The campus is also conducting wastewater testing to see where potential COVID hotspots may pop up.
A lot of it's very similar to last time, though, encouraging masking, making sure testing is very prevalent and available wherever possible, and then dealing with some of the unique circumstances that pop up in these kind of things where you have to deal with, special situations given the reality of fighting this virus.
The plan right now is for students to attend classes in person, but the university is prepared for a potential switch to virtual learning if there's a COVID spike on campus.
Fall sports practices are in full swing despite hot summer weather. For parents and students, it's important to know risk for heat illness, including heat exhaustion and heat stroke, is highest when kids exercise at hot temperatures. Symptoms to look out for include nausea, vomiting, weakness, and confusion. If untreated, heat illness can be deadly. So how do we keep kids safe when temperatures rise? Pediatricians say hydration is key. Dehydration increases the risk of heat-related illness. Signs of dehydration include thirst, headache, dizziness, and fatigue, but doctors say getting ahead of the heat is best. When caught early, dehydration can be easily treated. Experts recommend taking frequent breaks, removing pads to cool down, and drinking plenty of fluids. Water is usually the best option. However, if you're doing vigorous activities for longer than an hour, then a sports drink may help out to replenish some of those electrolytes. It's important for kids to pay attention to early signs of dehydration. Young athletes should also know it's okay to speak up and tell their coach if they're not feeling well.
Anger, sadness, worry, guilt. Those are just some of the emotions veterans may be experiencing after watching the fall of Kabul and the recent attack that killed 13 American service members. And while the military can guide many things, there's no roadmap for grief.
I learned the night before a big mission how to operate a minesweeper, but I could just read this little easy manual and I could successfully find bombs in the ground to avoid stepping on them. That doesn't exist for what we're talking about today.
That conversation, We Grieve Together, brought veterans of every generation to the War Memorial Center to talk about their pain and how to move forward.
So anybody who's gone to Afghanistan, of course they have images and they have maybe names and they know people. That's a kind of hurt.
And he says it's more than just the veterans from this war feeling pain.
But Vietnam veterans have an old wound that this is a new wound on top of. So old wounds are being triggered.
And as an Iraq vet, Dr. Roush himself is working to process his own emotions while supporting others.
I'm feeling a lot of emotions, angry, feel helpless. Doing things like this makes me feel less helpless.
Ultimately, he and the other vets in the room want you to know you're not alone.
Well, don't tell Starbucks, but Bud Light says its new drink is the taste of fall. We're telling you all about this delicious new seltzer. Good Morning Texas returns.
Check this out. Bud Light is releasing a pumpkin spice spiked seltzer. It's made with a blend of pumpkin, cinnamon, nutmeg, and vanilla. The new drink's part of a fall-themed variety pack with flavors like toasted marshmallow, maple pear, apple crisp as well, and it's all available starting September 6th.
And meet the new Ioniq 5 Robo Taxi. It's an all-electric vehicle that can safely operate without a driver. Passengers do have some control over the vehicle, though. They'll be able to use different interfaces in the car's interior to tell it things such as when to make an extra stop. Now, Lyft plans to use the Robo Taxi to transport passengers in 2023.
Might be a good time to update your winter wardrobe. The 2022 edition of the Old Farmer's Almanac is now forecasting an extra chilly winter for Americans this year. They're calling it the season of shivers. The almanac predicts below average temperatures across most of the country. The editor says this winter could well be one of the longest and coldest we've seen in years. Joshua, what do you think about that?
Well, they didn't get it right last year. So. I mean, depending on which Farmer's Almanac you read. One said it was going to be cold. The other said it was going to be warmer than normal. And the one that said it was going to be cold missed it by about 2 weeks.
Oh, man.
And so it's like a horoscope, how these work. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're fun to read. Sometimes they're right, but you can't really tell this far out how the winter's going to be. However, the fact that we have had temperatures that just have not reached 100 yet, it already is starting off cooler than normal. So it's very well possible that we see a cooler than normal winter. I don't think we see what happened last year, though. That's like a once in 40 to 50 year type situation, if not 100 years. So rest assured of that. Let's talk about the tropics. We got a new tropical storm to tell you about. This is Tropical Storm Larry off the coast of Africa. 45-mile-per-hour winds. You can see it already blowing up there in the Atlantic Ocean. It's going to be a strong one, too, strengthening to Category 3. Notice it is staying out to sea, though, and beyond that, it looks like high pressure will build east of Bermuda, so that will sling it to the north. Shouldn't be a threat to the U.S., which is good news after what we saw there with Ida. Back here closer to home, we're dealing with another hot day. Heat advisory in effect for some of our northern counties. You can see them right there on some of our northern counties, Milam, Robertson, Leon County. That is in effect for today because we are going to see actual temperatures climb up into the upper 90s and feel like temperatures closer to around 105. Already we're waking up to them in the lower 80s and feeling like they're in the mid 80s currently. And Future Track shows you we will have a small chance of a shower or thunderstorm today. We'll call it about 20 to 30% chance, but most of all, it's just going to be hot and humid. Then we go into tonight and we should dry out, but then by Thursday, could see another pop-up shower or thunderstorm. Those are all the rain chances we have, though, because high pressure builds in for the weekend, and once high pressure builds in, things really start to dry out. All the showers, all the thunderstorms go around us, and you're looking at a dry weekend on the way. Upper 90s coming in for today, 98 in Hearn, Bryan College Station, Navasota, and Brenham, and then tonight down into the mid-70s. And as you look at that 10-day forecast, going to be talking about mid to upper 90s taking you through the rest of the week on into the weekend, and then maybe a slight cool down to the mid-90s later on next week.
Sounds good, Josh, and stick around, folks.
We have more news headed your way when Good Morning Texas returns. Coming up, more people are moving in. The new program being offered to those who want to buy land here in the Lone Star State.
Plus, the pandemic taking a toll on veterans, how one nonprofit's helping service members to get through hard times.
And right now, hospitals are facing a ventilator shortage. We take a look at why that's happening. It's Wednesday, September 1st. Good Morning Texas continues right now.
Connecting the Brazos Valley, this is Good Morning Texas.
With more people moving to the Lone Star State and purchasing land, a new program is being offered to landowners. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Paige Ellenberger.
And I'm Joey Horta. This small acreage, big opportunity program aims to provide landowners with the resources they need to manage their properties for wildlife conservation. The conservation practices differ depending on the location of the land. Program leaders are encouraging those who are interested to take advantage.
We are seeing that these new landowners do tend to have an interest in wildlife and in using their land like recreationally and in making it kind of a haven for native species.
The program here is hosting 2 workshops. The first will be September 25th in Nacogdoches, and the second is October 30th in Allen. We'll see if we get any rain here anytime soon for those pastures we just saw. They're looking a little dry there.
Yeah, just got a small chance of rain today. Not a great chance. Instead, we're going to be dealing with the heat again. You can see that heat advisory that is in effect for our northern counties does include Milam, Robertson, Leon County shaded there in the pink. That is where you're going to see temperatures that are climbing up above the upper 90s, close to that triple-digit mark, and going to feel like they're around 105 to 106 today. So need to be drinking plenty of water. Try to limit your time outside during the heat of the day. And if you do have to be outside working during the heat of the day, take frequent breaks in the shade so you don't get overheated. Upper 70s out there right now, a few lower 80s and feeling like the mid 80s this morning. So already we're kicking off the day on a warm note. And as we head into the afternoon, we may see a pop-up shower or thunderstorm, but most end up missing out. We'll call it about 20 to 30% chance. Overall, though, you get under one, could get a nice little cool down on the way. And then as we go through the overnight hours, things should dry out. But during the daytime tomorrow, we'll likely see pop-up showers and thunderstorms again, or at least the chance of them, and they'll be very isolated to scattered in nature as well. So many miss out on that. And then we get into the weekend. High pressure will build back in. That'll send these showers, these thunderstorms around us, and we'll see a quieter weekend on the way. Also a hot weekend as temperatures once again climb into the upper 90s. We get into the upper 90s today, though. 98 in Bryan College Station, Caldwell, 96 Milano, 96 in Anderson, 96 also in Centerville, and 98 in Brenham. Normally should be at 95 this time of year. And then tonight down into the mid-70s. And as you take a look at that 10-day forecast, we'll call officially for a high of 97 today, a 20% chance of rain, southeast winds at 10 miles per hour. 20% chance on Thursday as well, high near 95. Friday 97, Saturday 97. Sunday 98. Yeah, it stays hot through your Labor Day weekend. There may be a slight cool down later on next week as moisture tries to work back in, bringing us some small rain chances, but still it'll be humid. So there's mid-90s, probably going to feel pretty close to the upper 90s to near triple digits later on next week as well.
All right, Josh, thank you. Texas veterans double the rate at which civilians die by suicide. And with an alarming statistic like that one, a national nonprofit organization, Armed Services Arts Partnership, uses the arts to help. KRHD News reporter Rachel Espaillat has the details.
ASAP uses the arts to help members of the military community cope with trauma. And programs like this potentially save lives, as 511 Texas vets died by suicide in 2018 alone, according to the VA. ASAP offers a 6-week class where people can use activities like comedy and improv to let loose, while also helping participants work through their trauma in a safe place. Classes are kept in a small, intimate setting with 2 instructors and no more than 12 people to a class.
What they actually got in the classroom isn't just the art form, but they actually received lifelong relationships that they wouldn't have had prior.
Due to the pandemic, all classes in the Lone Star State are being held virtually. In Brazos County, Rachel Espaillat, KRHD News.
The number of children testing positive for COVID-19 increased 5-fold over the past month. Now, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, more than 200,000 kids received a positive result just last week. The case counts rising at the same time kids are heading back to school. Almost 4.8 million children-related COVID cases were reported since the pandemic began, making up about 15% of all cases. People with high-risk allergies can safely get vaccinated with the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, according to a study published in the journal JAMA Open Network. Researchers found that nearly 98% of their high-risk patients had no immediate allergic reaction after the first dose of the vaccine. 1.4% had minor allergic responses, and less than 1% experienced severe allergic reactions. But even among those patients, there was no need for hospitalization. And as more people do become hospitalized, hospitals are searching for enough ventilators and oxygen for those who really need it. Some hospitals have been forced to use backup tanks, which are normally used only when their main tank is being filled. Another problem is finding enough drivers who carry the proper hazardous material certifications to deliver oxygen to hard-hit hospitals. Benefit expense ratios are part of how insurers evaluate their business, and here's one ratio Medicare is surely aware of. It costs about 150 times more to hospitalize a person with COVID than it does to vaccinate them. The breakdown works like this. Medicare pays about $40 for each shot. Contrast that with how much it costs on average to hospitalize a COVID patient, almost $22,000. That skyrockets to nearly $50,000 if a ventilator is needed. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, in June and July, COVID hospitalizations for unvaccinated people have cost the healthcare system more than $2 billion.
Another study in the journal JAMA Network Open shows the number of new cancer cases went down in the first year of the pandemic. It may sound like good news, but the reason for the decline appears to be that many adults weren't going to the doctor or getting routine screening. The study is based on data from nearly 800,000 patients who tested positive for one of the 8 most common cancers in the U.S. That includes colorectal cancer, lung cancer, pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, and breast cancer in women.
All right, now we're going to paint a rainbow. So reach across your body with one arm and paint a rainbow in the sky.
Welcome to Dance for Fluidity. This is not your typical dance class. This one is for people with neurological disorders like Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, or anyone with balance and movement issues.
Listening to music does something to our brains, and then moving to that music does something else. And it just, I know it's transforming, and I totally believe in it.
What we're offering are programs that can help stimulate the brain, keep you moving, and having fun.
I have to think left and right and different things to make my body do what my mind says it's going to do.
It may look like an ordinary boxing gym, but these fighters are more driven than ever to battle a foe far more dangerous than the likes of Mike Tyson. Everyone in this gym hits the bags to keep Parkinson's disease at bay.
The only way to help slow the progression of the disease, prevent these symptoms from getting worse, is forced intense exercise, and that's what we try to do here.
The group workout atmospheres prove to help people with Parkinson's regain motor function and slow their disease.
And I feel more confident in my balance and what I'm doing.
Wildfires are devastating to communities throughout the country. However, their original purpose was to be helpful. One research facility discovered fires can still burn without taking communities down with them. It smells like a smoldering fire. times 20 in the depths of the forest in southern Oregon. The remnants of the bootleg fire still sensitive to the senses, and now at the forefront of research.
It's just an amazing place to be able to welcome people into the ecosystem that they're studying.
Miles and miles into these trees, you'll find researchers testing and studying wildfire activity.
We are out here in the Big Coyote Fuels Treatment Area, Sycan Marsh Preserve, owned and managed by the Nature Conservancy.
Katie Sauerbray is the acting fire manager and preserve manager.
The stand around us that we're walking through is kind of a model of what forest restoration and trying to create forest resiliency can look like.
She also fought fires like the bootleg on the front lines.
The fire went from, in a lot of ways, some of the most extreme fire behavior I've witnessed in my fire career.
That's when she says she saw the success of their work in real time.
This kind of rip-roaring fire through the crowns had come across the creek and had burned into an area that we treated with prescribed fire in 2019, and it was burning on the forest floor, and I cheered. I got out of my truck and I was cheering.
A prescribed burn is set intentionally and under close monitoring for forest management.
You have the bunch grasses, you have this pine litter.
They reduce the density of the forest and clean up the forest floor.
You have inches and inches of this combustible material. That's going to create flame.
This preserve is a living laboratory.
We've learned things about both the forest, the vegetation, the conditions that, previously did not exist in the scientific literature.
Treated in some areas, untouched in others.
It looks dramatically different from where we just were.
The bootleg fire is the most recent example of just how crucial those prescribed burns are to this ecosystem.
Green on one side, black on the other.
If all of a sudden you're in a stand like this, where this is all the fuel that the fire has, you're looking at your flame lengths that are going to be this high, right?
Think of it as putting a lid on a pot of boiling water.
These forests are used to burning roughly every 13 years, and that acts as that kind of reset switch in the system. If you put out every fire for 100 years, you've missed 10 cycles that should have come through that forest stand.
It's a change in our society that's creating the change in our environment.
Steve Rondeau is the Natural Resources Director for the Klamath tribes.
There was a time when the tribes lived on these lands and managed them, and they used fire to do that.
He, along with Rorik Paget, a fire management officer with the U.S. Forest Service, work with the Nature Conservancy on these efforts. Their main goal? To allow Mother Nature to mostly control wildfires, while also protecting communities.
It's definitely a gut punch when you look at the areas that are devastated by the fire.
They say if fire suppression efforts don't change, the devastation will only get worse.
How many times can we have that happen and still have a forest left?
He says the answer is not many more, which is why they feel their discoveries made by combining wildfire science with traditional tribal knowledge can be implemented on a much bigger scale.
Kind of this mechanical thinning followed by prescribed fire, we can do that around communities to create buffers around them so that when we do have those wildfires in the summer, it essentially creates kind of a safe space or a catcher's mitt so that we can hopefully protect those communities.
In Southern Oregon, I'm Jessie Cohen reporting.
Just ahead, several months after February's winter storm, energy customers here in the Lone Star State can breathe a sigh of relief. What you can do if you've already paid the hefty bill when Good Morning Texas returns.
Thanks to a recent settlement, customers of Grid Energy won't have to pay for those sky-high electric bills they saw during February's winter storm that killed hundreds of people. Back in March, the Attorney General filed a suit against the company for, quote, false, misleading, and deceptive advertising and marketing practices. The company offered a wholesale electricity rate rather than a fixed rate, which left everyone with massive bills to pay. Grid Energy filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy the month they were hit with the lawsuit. Former customers who did pay will have to pursue legal claim in bankruptcy courts to get reimbursed. And if you're a Windows user, get ready for an upgrade. Windows 11 will be available on October 5th. If you don't see it right away, don't panic. The company says the rollout will be staggered, but all systems should be updated by the middle of next year. Users who want to continue to use Windows 10 can do so through 2025.
The U.S. Census Bureau says Black parents had the highest spike of teaching their kids at home during the pandemic, going from 3% in the spring to 16% in fall 2020. By the way, that nationwide survey specifically asked parents if they were homeschooling or doing virtual learning through schools.
The Census Bureau said that there was an increase of 500% based on previous research.
Dr. Khadija Ali Coleman and Dr. Cheryl Field Smith run blackfamilyhomeschool.org, the website a vast resource for everyone from researchers to Black parents looking to homeschool or currently doing it.
COVID really provided the perfect storm for parents to begin to make that transition to homeschooling.
They say they're not surprised by the statistics after hearing from parents who complained about everything from racism to a lack of compassion when schools went virtual.
What was really unearthed is this lack of ease in transitioning in real lifetime instruction to a virtual environment. Many of the schools and many of the teachers lacked the grace when it came to grading, when it came to interacting with children.
When we look at the history of Black education in America, these schools weren't meant for us. When you look at discipline disproportionality, it's our children who are 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on which research study you look at, times likely to be expelled or suspended beginning in pre-K. I mean, really.
Former teacher turned mom of 2 boys, Victoria Jones says she and her husband always considered homeschooling, but the pandemic gave them an extra push.
Even if I wanted to send my child to preschool right now, I would not, because Greg Abbott has a ban on masking mandates.
The Houston mom, originally from Alabama, says she's protecting her kids, not just from COVID.
I had some great experiences at school, but then I also had some not so great experiences at school. One of my teachers that I really liked in 12th grade, we had a great relationship. I asked her to write me a recommendation for college, and she wrote on the recommendation, "Victoria is smart for a person of her color." And just things like that, I don't want my kids to have to face that either.
When you're not going to listen to us, when you're going to mistreat our children, when you're not going to see their talent and gifts that they bring, yeah, we're going to homeschool.
Back in Jackson, Skinner says while COVID led them to homeschool, it might not be permanent.
I want my kids to be around in certain sports or be around certain people. But for right now, this is the best option.
Plus, his kids really miss the simple things.
They absolutely miss hearing the bell ring.
Still ahead, when was the last time you wrote a letter? It's World Letter Writing Day. How you can celebrate when we come back. Today is World Letter Writing Day. Author Richard Simpkin founded the unofficial holiday back in 2014. He fell in love with writing letters while writing to people he considered to be legends in Australia. He now does letter writing workshops and promotes it as a way for adults to take a break from social media. To celebrate the occasion, just pick a friend or relative, grab some paper and pen, and write them a letter. You could up the ante, I guess, by doing it in cursive.
Oh gosh,
and so
that's asking for a lot.
See, there are people who've never written a letter and don't know how to do it in cursive.
You know, I write letters all the time, actually.
Could you do it in cursive?
I could if I really tried. It might take me a little bit longer. I don't think anybody wants to read my cursive. That's the problem.
It's hard to do.
It is.
These are just not things that we do anymore.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. Just text me. It's fine.
How are
Get
people
it right
going
now.
to sign in the future then?
I don't.
What's
digital?
So easy. You're
You know?
right.
It's different. It's a lot different.
Same people can't write cursive probably don't even know how to sign a check.
Or balance a checkbook, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's a whole.
Well, it's all virtual now too, so I don't
why
know.
do it?
It's crazy.
Hey, so what's up with our forecast?
Talking about heat, that's something that all of us know, and that's what we'll be having later on this afternoon with heat advisory still in effect for our northern counties. This is going in effect this afternoon, going to be lasting through at least today with a heat advisory in effect for Milam, Robertson, and Leon County. Does not officially include Bryan College Station or the rest of the Brazos Valley, but all of us are going to be dealing with the heat this afternoon, so need to be taking our heat precautions, drinking plenty of water, try to limit your time outside, and if you do have to be outside working during the heat of the day, be sure to take frequent breaks in the shade. 79 in Bryan, 79 in College Station. Some areas still holding on to 80 degrees, and it feels like the mid-80s outside. Future Track says we have a small chance of a shower or thunderstorm this afternoon. We'll give it about a 20% chance as we go through the afternoon, but many end up missing out. Otherwise, just going to stay hot, going to stay humid. Same setup tomorrow, a pop-up shower or thunderstorm possible, but once again, the chance is low, and we don't have much on the way of rain chances on the way for the weekend, too. That's good news for your plans, but unfortunately, it's going to stay hot. It's going to stay humid through your Labor Day weekend as high pressure builds on in. We were thinking we would get a cold front to come in for the middle of the week. Some of the models are trying to dry that up, so the jury's still out on if that's going to happen. Until then, we hold on to the heat, though. 98 Bryan College Station today, 98 Calvert, 98 Navasota, and then tonight, dipping down into those mid-70s. 10-day forecast shows you 97 for today, 95 for tomorrow, with a 20% chance of rain. We head into the weekend, we'll call it 97 and 98 Saturday and Sunday with partly cloudy skies. Later on, by the middle of next week, we're back down to the mid-90s, keeping a few rain chances around, but still it's going to remain humid. So those mid-90s will feel like the triple digits.
All right, hang on to that umbrella, and thanks for starting your day with us.
Happy Hump Day. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. We'll see you back here tomorrow on Good Morning Texas.